Hello and welcome to a new video here on my channel here at commaik. The conversion of my pool from a steel wall pool to a stone pool is currently progressing only slowly. I'm still waiting for the concrete pump. But today I'm going to use the time to connect the inlet nozzles. I will modify the old piping from the oval steel wall pool and connect the inlet nozzles of the new stone pool. You can already see the individual parts lying here. What the drainage pipe is all about, you'll see in a moment as well, so stay tuned, see you in a bit. For almost half a year now, I've been converting my former oval steel wall pool into a stone pool. Here you can see the southern, or rather the western partition wall, where I will install 2 inlet nozzles. I've already installed the wall duct into the stone wall. Even though it hasn't been filled in yet, the wall is already stable and I can continue working. On the back side, I have a 2-inch external thread here. My original plan was to have the supply line coming from the pool house, which is split here at this point into the left and right halves via a T-piece, that I would extend these parts and connect them directly to the inlet nozzles. I've now abandoned this plan. Instead, I'm going to connect everything so that I place an elbow at this T-piece here, run it directly over these stones, and place a T-piece in front of the cross wall over there, which branches off to the right and left to the 2 inlet nozzles. The T-piece at this spot will be removed by me and replaced with an elbow. From this elbow, the pipe runs over here and is split via the T-piece that I removed, so that the pipe, which will later be exposed here or embedded in the concrete, does not absorb the cold from the concrete and transfer it to the water. Since my inlet has a heater, the whole thing will be wrapped in a drainage pipe. Inside the drainage pipe, the flexible pipe has a bit of air around it, creating a buffer so that the heat from the solar heater isn't lost. For the connection at the inlet nozzle or at the wall penetration, I've already gotten various fittings. I have a adapter from 2 inches to 1.5 inches. This in turn is connected with a 1.5 inch female thread to the connection of the flexible pipe. The whole setup is done twice for the left and right side. I also have an elbow fitting, which will be installed here, already in stock. The installation parts are linked for you below the video in the description. That way you can conveniently reorder them if you plan to replicate my setup. Before I lay the flexible pipe, I will first assemble the transitions from the wall duct to the elbow fitting. Because of the thread, or rather this thread here, I can't be sure that the whole thing will be leak-proof, so I'll have to use thread sealant here. That means for me, off to the workshop to screw these parts together first. Welcome back to my workshop. Here you can see the transition from a 2-inch female thread, which goes onto the wall duct in the pool, to a 1.5-inch male thread. This elbow fitting will then be screwed onto the male thread, and on the other side of this elbow, the flexible pipe will be inserted here. The attachment, the union nut is loosened as much as possible, the flexible pipe or hose is inserted, and then the union nut is simply tightened again. Inside, there is a sealing ring here, which is why it's important that the flexible pipe is cut straight, so that the end can rest against the sealing ring. Next comes this compression sleeve, or this compression ring, which has small barbs, and when the pipe is inserted underneath here inside, and first this ring is slipped over the end of the pipe, making sure it is properly aligned. Then the white ring is pressed inward with steady pressure. As you do this, the barbs inside the fitting grip into the pipe and hold it firmly and tightly in place. This secure hold ensures that the pipe will not slip or come loose. These steps are important to make a strong and reliable connection between the pipe and the fitting, so that everything stays securely connected and works as intended. External thread and this internal thread watertight. There are several options. Often, these threads already have a conical cut. That means the further I screw the whole thing in, the harder it gets, and the threads seal themselves automatically. In this case, it does get a bit harder towards the end, but I don't quite trust it, and I'm also not sure whether this is actually a conical thread. For this reason, I will now carefully seal the whole thing with a sealing ring or an O-ring, making sure it is properly in place. This is the one right here, which I am going to place over, making sure it fits snugly. And then I can carefully screw the whole thing in, turning it all the way until it stops. Not too tight, otherwise the ring could break. It should already be sealed at this point. In addition to the sealing ring, I will also apply a thread sealing cord. For this, I use thread sealing cord, like this one here, for example, and I make sure that for each groove, for each thread groove, there is really only one layer. The thicker you make it, the higher the risk that the thread will get damaged, or that this coupling, this reducer, will simply break. You really don't need much for this. Here's what I do. I carefully lay the cord into the very first groove, holding it securely in place at the beginning for a little bit, and then I simply pull it gently through all of the grooves. I've already prepared everything here in advance. As you can see, it's applied very thinly and evenly. For each groove, I use one piece of tape and one thread. And if I now continue, connect them together, you can already feel the resistance, but I can still hand tighten it all the way to the rubber ring. I'm back at the pool, at the wall penetration, with the component I just assembled. This 2-inch internal thread naturally fits directly onto this 2-inch external thread, and I can, as you can see, easily demonstrate how they connect together. Screw the whole thing on here relatively easily. It even wobbles a bit. That means for me, without the gasket, it wouldn't be watertight. Here, I have the option to insert a sealing ring directly and then carefully screw the whole thing in completely until this edge gently presses against the sealing ring and seals accordingly. However, it only seals now if the elbow is pointing in the wrong direction. This means that if the elbow is not positioned correctly, the seal will not work as it should. The elbow needs to point in, as having it face inward is important for making sure the seal is effective and prevents any leaks. This direction. I could force it to turn further, but I'm not sure to what extent that might the sealing ring not seal properly anymore because it was either compressed too little or too much. For this reason, I will also secure the thread here with an additional sealing thread. My main advantage right now, at this very moment, is that I am still able to access this particular area whenever I need to, at any time I choose, without any restrictions. On the other side, for the process of the wall penetration, I will carefully install a plug and then supply water to the pipes that are going into this section. This way, I can thoroughly and reliably check whether my construction is truly watertight. That's too much. Roughly, and thanks to the sealing tape, the whole thing should now really be watertight. Now I can take care of the T-piece. I will remove this T-piece from the inlet and replace it with an elbow. This flexible pipe can be tightened by hand, but it's a good idea. It's easier to just use a wrench like this. Of course, I'll put the link for it below the video. First, I open the two side outlets by turning each valve until they are fully open, making sure to release any built-up pressure. Then, I carefully remove the hose from its connection, taking care not to damage the fittings. Now, a bit of concrete goes in right here. You can see a small notch here. That's where the clamping ring held the pipe in place. The T-piece has been removed. I'll leave the union nut on and have already opened up my elbow fitting here. and then the whole thing is simply screwed back on. At first, just hand tight, because I still need to align the pipe here. And finally, just tighten it a bit more with the wrench. Now I have my elbow fitting here, which runs to the center, and here is the T-piece, which is supposed to split the water flow to the left and right. A leftover piece from when the pool was built, already several years old, is now going to be placed in between here. To get the whole thing to the right length, I'm going to open the adapter here. I'm also going to insert the whole thing here all the way in, up to the stop for now. Then the whole thing will be cut in the middle here. There's an edge on the outside here, and the whole thing goes in up to there. That makes it easy to measure. With a pipe cutter, you can now cut the pipe or hose cleanly and straight. However, you do need a fairly large pipe cutter for that. Alternatively, you can also do it with a good hacksaw. But you really have to make sure that you cut it cleanly at a 90-degree angle. I've now attached the ring, the T-piece. I'm carefully screwing them together right now. First, just hand tight here as well. Then the whole thing goes on. I'll calmly align it, then put a clamp in the middle so the whole thing doesn't sag. And then, after making sure that everything is properly aligned, I'll carefully tighten everything with a sturdy wrench, just enough so that it holds securely in place. Now the other side goes on, and then we can move on to the test. At this point I could already do the leak test. But I want to later embed this central bar in concrete. Only the connectors, the T-pieces and the elbows should remain accessible for possible repairs, so that this embedded section doesn't absorb too much heat since the water is heated before it flows into the pool. I'll place a drainage pipe over this flexible hose. This way I've created insulation, a bit of air, and at the same time the concrete doesn't press directly onto the flexible hose. After connecting the flexible pipes to the old inlet, it's time to test the whole thing. Here I have my wall duct and would prefer to simply screw in a plug. However, this is a 2-inch internal thread and my plugs are only 1.5 inches. So I wrapped the inlet nozzle, the inlet jet, thoroughly with Teflon tape to create a plug seal. Now I'll screw the whole thing in as far as it will go until the resistance becomes too great. And then I'll let water into the system. As soon as water starts coming out here, I'll seal the area with my winter plug. That will be screwed in. I've already done this on the other side. Then I can check whether the pressure in the system remains constant or drops. And then I have to check where a leak is present. I'll do the filling directly in the pool house. Here I have the supply line to the solar heater, here the return line and the bypass, which I have closed. Now I'll let the water into this pipe here. The return line from the solar roof has already been shut off, which means the system is closed. The water then backs up here into the pipe leading to the supply line to the pipe I just installed. Water on. Oh, I can actually already see here that one ring is still leaking, so I need to tighten that up. It looks good back there. Here too there's a little bit of dripping at the thread, so I'll tighten that up as well. And over there, that looks sealed too. Well, that's not too bad for a start. I'll tighten it a bit more with the wrench and then everything should be sealed. I've tightened the leaking spots again, or rather at the T-piece I had to reinsert the pipe once more. But now everything is holding. There's no more dripping, it's sealed. Now I can move on to the next phase of construction because I've received the good news that the concrete pump will finally be coming soon and will also fill up the remaining concrete blocks for me. At the same time, the foundation for the outdoor kitchen and behind it for the new garden house will also be poured. There's still a bit to do until then. I'll start by plastering the finished walls. Of course, I'll take you along with me again. If you don't want to miss that, subscribe to my channel. Give me a like for this video if you enjoyed it. Check out my links below. Shop through my links to support my channel. I'd like to thank you in advance for that. And at this point, thank you very much for watching and see you next time. Ciao!